Okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Wellness for Librarians, a webinar presented by IFLA Continuing Professional Development and Workplace Learning, CPDWL, and IFLA New Professionals Special Interest Group, NPSIG. This is part of the New Librarians Global Connections, Best Practices, Models, and Recommendations webinar series started by CPDWL and NPSIG in 2012. My name is Lloyda Garcia. I am the moderator of this webinar today and a speaker on the topic later on. Since March 2020, librarians, along with the entire world, have been experiencing acute levels of stress and anxiety caused by the pandemic. Recently, stressors related to civil conflict have exacerbated panic levels. Today, we are going to hear examples of how libraries can help and are helping exhausted library workers serving exhausted library patrons. We will also hear about resources to help library workers with burnout and anxiety, and help them with wellness in different areas of their lives. Next slide. Like Brené Brown said, we don't have to do it, all of it alone. We were never meant to. We are here today sharing resources to help us all in our wellness journey. I am a firm believer that for library workers to be able to give, they also need to be able to have something in them, right? Because this is what we do when we provide library programs and services. So library workers need to be equipped with tools to help them with their own overall wellness. There are no magical solutions, but we all working together, and over time, we can build networks to support each other. Before continuing, I would like to thank CPDWL and Edward Lin for their support in various tasks to make this webinar happen. And thanks to IFLA and NPSIG for partnering to present this webinar. Thank you, attendees and speakers from different parts of the world, where perhaps some of them are speaking when it's nighttime or very earlier in the morning. And our speakers today are, and I will start with myself, Lloyda Garcia, International Library Consultant, expert in library services to diverse populations and human rights, and President of the American Library Association 2018-2019. She served 2 terms on the IFLA Governing Board and is a member of the CPDWL Advisory Network and co-founder of IFLA New Professionals. She also coordinates information for the Management of Library Associations section of IFLA. We also have Bobby Newman from the USA, a librarian, writer, consultant, library advocate, and international speaker. She is the author of the forthcoming book, Fostering Wellness in the Workplace, a guide for libraries. Newman serves as a member of the advisory board for Let's Move in Libraries. She is currently the community engagement and outreach specialist for the network of the National Library of Medicine Region 6 at the University of Iowa. Hella Klosser from Germany is responsible for international cooperation within the Network of Excellence for Libraries at the German Library Association in Berlin, member of IFLA Management of Library Association sections, member of IFLA's Europe Regional Division, and Deputy President of EBLIDA, the European Bureau of Library Information and Documentation Associations. Ulrike Lang from Germany. Until June 2020, she was head of the Education and Training Department at the State and University Library, Hamburg, also responsible for health management, conflict management, diversity management, and addiction prevention. Member of the German Library Association, co-chair of the CPDWL, our session, and was member of the Education and Training section of IFLA. and is a convener of the IFLA Coaching Initiative. Magdalena Komolka from Poland works at the Salesian Library in Katowice, Poland. She is a senior librarian in the Advisory and Training Department, which coordinates the work of public libraries in the Silesia region. Magdalena is a member of the Polish Librarians Association and a convener of the IFLA New Professional Special Interest Group. Katharina Isberg from Sweden. She's the library director of Helsingborg City Library since 2013, member of the management and marketing section of IFLA. And during 2019 to 2021, Katharina served as division chair and on the IFLA governing board and the IFLA Congress Advisory Committee and Professional Committee. Katharina also served 2 terms as a member of IFLA CPDWL. Dr. Sadi Jane Hoff from Singapore. She's the president of the Library Association of Singapore, and she's the head of learning and knowledge curation at the Singapore Institute of Management. Samantha Shear from Singapore, librarian at the Lead for NTU Library Service and Innovation and Excellence team, where she drives projects of innovation to create and enhance services to elevate user experience within that library in Singapore. She's also a member of the Staff Engagement Committee, which cares for the welfare of the library staff and plans events to facilitate funding. So we have some experts in the area of wellness and libraries with us today. And with further ado, I would like to welcome our first speaker, and she is Bobby Newman. Welcome.
Thank you, Lloyda. Thank you for the introduction. I am very delighted to be here with my fellow panelists, and I am going to start sharing my slides and get started. It is early in the morning for me here, so I'm really looking forward to today, and I got up extra early for it. I want to talk about wellness for librarians, but first I want to give us a permission slip. I want to acknowledge that we're in the midst of a global pandemic and collective trauma. I encourage you, as both presenters and attendees, to prioritize your wellness during this webinar. We may cover some triggering topics. Please feel free to doodle, color, knit, eat, drink, move your body in a way that feels good to you, take a break, and whatever else you need to do to take care of yourself. Your wellness is more important than anything, including this webinar. I am going to turn off my video since I have 2 screens and it looks like I might not even be paying attention to myself. I want to give a definition of health and wellness before we get started. And I particularly like this definition from the World Health Organization because it stresses that health and wellness is not just the absence of a disease or infirmity, but it is a state of complete mental, physical, and social well-being. When we talk about wellness at work, and when I started my work with, I don't know why those aren't showing up. When I started my work on developing a class for wellness in the workplace about 4 years ago and working on the book, I realized that wellness was a very broad term and had become a very big deal. And so I needed to clearly define what I wanted to talk about and what should and should not be a part of wellness, especially at work. And so some of the things that should be included include our physical health. And those are things that you might come to mind pretty easily, like ergonomics, I think is one that often is thought about. Less is the access to natural light and nature. There's a growing body of research on the importance of that, not just in our hours away from work, but while we're at work. We spend a significant portion of our life at work. Air quality and noise and those kind of things in our physical environment at work. But also, I think the part that often goes overlooked is emotional health and wellness. And these include things like stress, compassion fatigue, burnout, invisible and emotional labor. And these have a very significant impact on both our physical well-being and our mental well-being. I also found as I began looking into the research that I needed to put some things outside of the box. And I want to talk about why we don't talk about these as part of wellness at work. First is weight loss and any movement-based programs. Discussions of weight and weight loss often result in eating disorders and unhealthy ideas and in relationship around food and exercise. If we focus at these programs at work, they may exclude staff members. They can result in people feeling isolated and ostracized and not part of the team. They can result in people withdrawing and eating lunch and other snacks away from work and hiding their food. Um, Movement-based programs are very ableist. Many people may not be able to walk or move in ways that these programs require, and it just isn't our place to do that. The focus of Wellness at Work should be empowering people to make their own health decisions, not dictating how they do that. In particular, at least in the United States, the BMI, the body measurement index, is often used in weight loss programs, both in our health system and in programs at work. There are some very serious racist roots around that program, and it really needs to go away. In fact, it was just sort of arbitrarily changed about 20 years ago, and suddenly a lot of people who were not considered overweight or obese were. So this is not a good scientific based method for health. There's plenty of new research indicating weight is not the best or the only indicator of physical or mental well-being. And finally, depending on where you are, there may be legal and ethical reasons surrounding weight loss and movement-based programs at work. Wellness is a commodity. The wellness industry is almost $1 trillion industry today, and I apologize, that is US dollars. Um, Most, if not all, of our wellness efforts can be accomplished without cost. There are absolutely some wonderful things that you can purchase to facilitate your journey or make it easier, but those should not be the basis. And then finally, faux health and wellness. And these are things like social media influencers, celebrities who write books, or create brands to sell products. It matters because there's an increase. Employees who are healthy and well have a number of increased benefits for both themselves and the library. And I just want to highlight a couple. It improves job satisfaction and performance and improves productivity, but it also can increase positive reactions with our patrons and include the community perception of the library. So in addition to benefiting the individuals, having a healthy workplace really benefits the library and the community that you serve. Burnout is something we've been hearing a lot about, both in relation to the pandemic, but also outside of it. And this definition is from the World Health Organization, and so they recognized this as a problem in 2019 prior to the COVID pandemic, but the pandemic has only exacerbated it. It's chronic workplace stress that's not successfully managed. And I really want to highlight that work burnout is a cause of issues at work and not individuals. More importantly, recovering from burnout takes a significant amount of time. We're talking anywhere from 6 months to years. And so addressing this ahead of time, it's one of these things that you're far better off to make changes to address this ahead of time. Another topic we've been hearing a lot about is compassion fatigue. And this is something that started in the nursing profession, but has been expanded to look at any service-based professions. So libraries are a service-based profession, and we're offering helping people or animals who are in distress. And it is this preoccupation with the suffering of people that were helped. So it is creating a secondary traumatic stress for the helper. And we have seen an increased amount of webinars and information around trauma-based care and trauma, processing trauma internally for library staff, as well as for our patrons. Any service profession does emotional labor, and I think arguably we all do as we move about the world. It's publicly displaying certain emotions while hiding others. And this isn't something that's going to going to go away or going to stop. But I think as librarians and people who work in libraries, we have to acknowledge that this happens and consider how we um, provide the space physically and mentally for people who, especially those who are working a service desk or have strong interactions with your communities, how do they have space to process this after they've had to do it? They have to have a break. They have to have somewhere they can go to have some quiet time and regroup. I think one of the reasons we don't successfully address a lot of our issues around health and wellness in libraries is this concept of vocational awe. And Fobazi Itar wrote about this back in 2018, and I think the relevance of it is only going to continue to grow. But it's this idea. I know personally I went into libraries because I have this idealistic value about what they do and the services they provide. And we tell themselves this about our profession, but it also results in this belief that libraries as institutions are inherently good and sacred and therefore beyond critique. And the truth is that we have a lot of practices internally, both that we bring from us from our culture and society, but also within the profession that sometimes often contribute to poor mental health and wellness. So, what can libraries do? And I do like to start with libraries themselves and not individuals because most of what um, needs to be done does need to be done at the organizational and management and leadership level. Most of what can be done at the individual level is just treating the symptoms and not the cause. So we want to empower people to make their own healthy decisions. So consider what your environment looks like and what policies you have in place. Culture of transparency. And then physical space is also incredibly important. So I know that this is very difficult and this is a very short webinar, but there are resources out there to dig deeper into this. So take a look at the changes you can make. As individuals, there are some things that we can do to mitigate stress at work. These things you've probably heard before, and I am certainly guilty of the do as I say, not as I do. So I also struggle to do these things, but they do definitely improve your health and wellness at work. I like to recommend mindfulness. This is something I myself have gotten into a few years ago. There is an excellent body of research about the benefits of mindfulness. I know it can be frustrating to hear that as an individual, to try mindfulness when uh, what's happening at work is very frustrating to you, but it really does make a difference. And I just want to leave us with a few resources that are out there that I think are particularly good. And my slides are available. I know I went quite quickly. Mindful and LIS is both a blog, an Instagram, and a Twitter account and has some great resources for everyone. Renewers work from Katrina Kendrick Davis is also a great resource for managing burnout and stress in libraries. There is a Mindfulness for Librarians Facebook group. I am not associated with this, although I am a member. There is a free online class that I offer from the network of the National Libraries of Medicine, and anyone can register for that. So that is open internationally. And lastly, as Lloyda mentioned, I am the author of a book that will be out in the fall. And I am going to stop sharing and hand off the mic.
Thank you so much, Bobby. There is so many different strategies about wellness and how libraries can support the wellness journey of their staff. And I think it's key to reach an agreement with the library workers on what they feel comfortable as well in terms of these strategies. So thank you so much for so many resources, Bobby. We should have definitely a longer webinar. Now I would like to welcome Hela Kloser. She's coming from Germany, and this is going to be a video presentation.
Dear colleagues, I'm very pleased to participate today in this webinar on the important topic of wellness for librarians, and I'm sorry that I cannot be there live, but only via recording. Many thanks to Lloyda for the initiative, and thanks to the IFLA section Continuing Professional Development and Workplace Learning in collaboration with IFLA New Professionals Special Interest Group for the organization. My name is Hella Klauser and I'm responsible for international cooperation at the German Library Association in Berlin, Germany. Altogether, we are a team of 24 people at the head office. Long before the pandemic, the staff of the head office were offered opportunities to promote their health and prevent illness or stress. I would like to present these experiences today and hope that they may provide some ideas. In the office of the German Library Association, people manage and organize, but not as in a library, run around in the rooms, climb stairs, bend down to the shelves, or stretch upwards to the last bookshelf. We sit in front of the screen, day after day and hour after hour. The result is that the backs have problems from sitting so much, and there is a lack of movement. In order to prevent and counteract this, a training course was held in 2016 as part of the so-called Workplace Health Promotion, which presented compensation exercises at the workplace. A qualified trainer came to us and showed us, the staff, various small exercises that we should do from time to time directly at the workplace to prevent tension and reduce stress. The exercises were easily to be integrated into our work routine. There are also exercises for the so-called moving break. The trainer then went from desk to desk and individually gave hints on the equipment. Did the chair meet the right requirements? Was the screen set at the right height and was the light angle correct? After that, some chairs were replaced. And we all, one after another, as it is a real investment, got height adjustable desks. This way I can stand and sit during work, which is very good for my back. In 2016, we also started running classes at the workplace. To do this, we hired a trainer who came to our office during working hours and trained us for an hour every week. This was not so much about doing intense exercise. After all, we returned to our workplace after the hour unshowered, but more about stretching, learning exercises to strengthen the back, finding balance. The programs for 10 weeks each included yoga, exercises for improving coordination and body awareness, relieving the shoulder-neck area, building up the core muscles. For this class, we rented a bigger and empty room in the office building as our meeting room was too small. Then we agreed on a date that suited as many of the team as possible, and then, with yoga mats and in casual sportswear, we went to the neighboring office for the appointment. After that, as I said, we got on with our work. It couldn't have been easier to squeeze an hour of sport into the working week. In addition, it promoted team spirit because it is a different perspective and real experience to suddenly find oneself together with colleagues in an environment that does not really belong in the professional sphere, but rather in the private sphere. After a few of these courses, we ran out of steam a little and paused. A new impetus and new start of the program came with a new colleague in our team in times of the pandemic, and thus in times of home office. The new colleague took over the organization, which means agreeing on a weekly date, the focus of the movement, choosing the trainer, and weekly reminders. Now, of course, the exercise class was also moved to home office. It took place virtually. However, no recordings were used, but live participations of trainer and participants, so that one could also see each other and the trainer during the lesson. Some of the classes were recorded for the follow-up use, but of the group only. The clear advantage of online sports courses during the pandemic was that there was initially an alternative to sports courses that were not allowed to take place because of the lockdown. So these online courses were at least a small substitute, not only for practicing a sports program, but also as a team building measure for a personal exchange among colleagues. And an important point is that also the isolation of home office was eased a little. Colleagues with smaller children also reported that they enjoy this hour of sport per week, as they would otherwise certainly not get to do any sporting activities on top of their jobs and family demands. And if you don't even have to go to the gym or out of your flat, but just look at the computer and spread out your mat in front of it, that is, of course, one hurdle less. So how were these courses financed? First of all, the employer, in our case the German Library Association, recognized the sports lesson as working time. Indeed, it assumed that the lesson was within the core working hours of all employees. Many people in Germany are insured for illness within a national health insurance scheme. There are different health insurance companies, but all of them offer financial support for prevention courses. So if I, as a member of a health insurance company, participate in a certified sports course and my regular participation is confirmed, I get a large part of the costs for this sports course reimbursed by my health insurance company. So the employees took part in the course, the trainer confirmed this, and the employees applied to their health insurance company to have the costs covered. If this was refused, was not possible, or only part of the costs were reimbursed, the employer stepped in and the association paid the costs of the remaining sum. Thus, the employees did not have to pay anything themselves. Conclusion. The employer's offer to sponsor sports courses is also an appreciation towards the employees and shows that the employer is concerned about the health and well-being and motivation of his employees. It supports with working time. Financially, the course does not have a significant impact on the employer because the majority of the costs are covered by the health insurance companies. For the employees, this offer is an opportunity to take advantage of a sporting balance to their everyday working life in an online course, independent of location, very low threshold and simple, to strengthen themselves physically and mentally through exercise and to value it as a shared group experience as part of team building. So that's it. Once again, I would like to thank Lloyda and the other organizers for this webinar, for the invitation, and I wish you all the best and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you to Hela. She's always a great collaborator. And it's very good to see today examples from different areas of our profession. That was an example from a library association office. And now we are still staying in with the same country, Germany. And we're going to hear from Ulrike Lang.
Thank you, Lloyda. My presentation is mostly a look back because, as you mentioned before, until June 2020, I was responsible for the health management at the State and University Library in Hamburg, Germany. I must confess, I don't know what is happening now in this area, even in times of the pandemic, when most of the colleagues are still in home office. But we all hope to go back to normal very shortly, and I hope that the colleagues will then find the way back to some confessions. The library financed for me university studies beside my regular working hours to get a degree in ergonomics with a focus on health management. They paid for the enrollment and I had to spend the hours on weekends. A very fair agreement and very successful for the staff from my point of view. First of all, the leadership is responsible for the health of their staff, and not only for the working hours, but for their whole life. And every option offered by the institution will help the staff, not only for their working hours, but for their whole life too. So the argument I heard sometimes, the library offers health-related education because they want me to run faster, is wrong. It's the responsibility for the staff overall. We started in Hamburg in 2013 with creating a health day every second year, alternate with the health day at the university, where our staff members could also participate. We have a wonderful exhibition and performance area you can see on this picture in our old building where we offered the exhibition. A business company presented the so-called ergo mouse, which can measure the position of your spine while you are sitting or standing. They will give you hints how to change these positions, for example, in height of the chair compared with the table, if you should use a footrest, etc. We had a complete office working place with table, chair, and screen to demonstrate distances and heights which are optimal to relieve eyes and body while working, and showing that every working place is individual to the size of a human being. A health insurance company offered fruit and vegetable smoothies with recipes. There were information about the correct way of lifting and carrying weights. The participants were connected with a monitor and had to lift a beverage crate with empty bottles. The system could change the weight of the crate to demonstrate the weight you usually have to carry. On a screen, the load on knees, shoulders, spine, etc. was visible, and an advisor gave suggestions for changes. Our Hamburg company physician participated in an extra room with measuring the blood pressure and blood glucose as well as cholesterol. She also checked the vaccination certificates and gave advice for fresh-ups. Trainers from the university were there to offer trial lessons up to 30 minutes with yoga, step aerobics, mental relaxation, etc. And we created a wishing wall where the colleagues could mention what they would like to have in the future. These brainstorming ideas were very carefully checked, and those who included their names got an answer when we will start with the offer or why we can't realize it in the near future. Some of the suggestions brought us to courses with yoga and progressive muscle relaxation, but also to instructions of balanced diet. The courses were scheduled usually for 10 meetings, 1 to 2 hours long, and in the rooms of the library. Some were in the working hours, some have to be visited in the private time of the participants, depending on the topic. But all courses were paid by the library. And we agreed to contracts with fitness studios where staff members could work out with reduced fees. Once a week, we had a 20 minutes moving break with experts from the university, also paid by the library. 3 groups of up to 15 persons learned easy exercises in a special room we reserved only for health topics. Our idea was the colleagues will learn some exercises and can repeat these whenever they want in their working spaces by themselves. But the human being seems to be a bit lazy, and we learned that we might always need an instructor and advisor who is also a motivator. By the way, Much more women participated than men in every health-oriented course or offer. In times of home office and lockdown during the pandemic, we offered this moving break as an online tool. We also had an office massage by a professional. He came once a week with a special chair, and the staff members could subscribe for a 20 minutes massage. This had to be paid by the colleagues themselves. A contract with the health insurance company, where the most of the staff is insured, gave us more. We started to have special trainings at the working places for all staff members working in the lending department, the reading rooms, and the magazines, with instructions to lift and carrying weights. After a short theoretical input, they had to show how they lift at their specific working place, for example, from a book trolley to the table or from the conveyor to the book trolley and the shelves. The instructor then demonstrated where and how they should change their movements to protect their joints. The European Union, so also Germany, has strong rules for risk assessments. Regularly, the employer has to measure risks for the health of the staff, but not only the working conditions, but also the psychological burdens by customers or other staff members, working hours, or the leadership. For this measurement, we used the so-called COPSOC, the Copenhagen Psychological Questionnaire. You will get a comprehensive evaluation after, where you can easily see where the red districts or teams are. For these, it is important to find individual solutions like coachings for department leaders, team trainings in stress prevention, new concepts for working places, or team building concepts. But from my point of view, part of the health and wellness management is also the conflict prevention. For this, we created a network with other institutions in Hamburg to exchange our specialists in mediation and conflict management. In an institution with round about 230 staff members, it might be difficult to find in a case of conflict someone who is educated and neutral for the opponents. So to have a pool of educated colleagues who don't know anybody because they are working in another institution is very helpful. Again, it's networking at its best. Stress prevention is also very useful as an education you can offer to your staff. Another sub-theme is drug prevention. Drugs like alcohol, gambling, or shopping addiction, but also eating disorders you have to monitor if you want to improve the health of your staff. Last area is grief at work. The death of a colleague, family member, or friend, but also divorce or separation could be very stressful. In these cases, we have a cooperation with an institution which offers general education in advance, like how can I support a grieving colleague, but also confidential conversations with mourners, the teammates, for example. If you want to start anything under the line of health and wellness, please be aware that you might need patience. With your leadership, that they will give you money, space, and time, and with your staff, that they will accept what you will offer. So my advice, look for partners and don't give up. It might take time to reach measurable efforts, but it's always worth doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ulrike. This is an excellent example on different strategies for academic libraries. And once again, we see how the participatory approach to elicit suggestions with the staff, then to adapt those suggestions is important. Great approach. Now we welcome Magdalena Gomulka from Poland.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Well, it's so great that so many of you were able to join us today. Thank you, Lloyda, for introducing me. I work in Salutations Library in Poland. I am an instructor and also I'm a convener of IFLA New Professional Special Interest Group. I'm delighted to take part in this webinar and share a few cases from Poland with you. So let me first open my presentation and get and give you a brief overview. Okay. Yeah, Great. So please feel free to write your question in the chat box or Q&A. So now I'm going to present a few some wellness projects from Poland, which were financed by funds from ministries and European Union, and also they were organized by librarians and for librarians. You will hear examples from Katowice, Lublin, Oleśnica, Bestwina, and Polish Librarians Association. There was a time in Poland when we associate wellness with international companies' methodology. Banks and IT teams created chill out areas in their buildings where their employees could relax and get recharge batteries during workday. It helped them to keep the energy in positive and creative energy. Moreover, some employees had also a possibility to get cards, which allowed them to go to the gym, swimming pool, sauna, and spa areas without paying a ticket. And it was in different parts of the country. I noticed that more and more libraries also offer this possibility to librarians, and librarians didn't have to pay for tickets. It was possible because the libraries you pays for the tickets from a social fund. So it was a beginning of the wellness area in Poland. And the second example was from my library 3 years ago. And my library had a project, Ergonomics at the Workplace. It was funded from European Social Fund. As you know, European Union help students to go and study abroad, but also there is a possibility to ask money for creating project and improve employment as well. So in this project, nearly 150 librarians, because my library is quite big, got a new chairs, food stalls, screens, and it was one big goal of this project. The second was that we could have money for organizing trainings about first aid, about customer service, about avoiding stress, and also adapting workplace to human factors. And next examples of the project is about workshops, online workshops during the pandemic. I noticed that many my colleagues saw that during the pandemic, they have and having a line between professional and personal life is very important. So in this slide, you can see three examples. First is from the Municipal Public Library in Oleśnica. They carried out the project funded by the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage in Poland. This project contained 5 topics. For example, creating podcast applications, online events, and the last but not least, it was about well-being during a pandemic. Librarians had a meeting with a coach who helped them and presented how to take care about yourself during the pandemic. Speaking with the director of the library in Oleśnica, I found out that librarians notice the meaning of vitality. I means that librarians took care of themselves because they saw that if they were stronger, they could take care of readers as well. Another interesting example comes from the Regional Public Library in Lublin. online workshops for the librarians, also with experts, allowed them how to organize a day during a remote work, such as preparing clothes, creating a workplace at home, living a comfort zone, and treating yourself with respect. And what is important here, participants talked with experts and they had meetings face-to-face with psychologists, how to manage stressful situation at work and also at home. Good results of this project were also articles in a newsletter which were sent to librarians about positive thinking, and a recording from workshops which are available on YouTube channel. And a last example is from the Polish Librarians Association. They organize a free workshop in response of many requests from PLL members. This workshop was about how to deal with difficult situation, and gave tips to participants how to adapt to new situation. A coach presented two methods, training for exhausted and also Stuart Schenkon method, how to avoid stressful situation. It's very important to think positive about the change, and also take care about diet and about sport as well. And this meeting was the first one. But I've heard that my association is thinking about another meetings which they can organize and meet librarians in life. So to bring my presentation to a close, I would like to recall words from the librarian from the public library in Bestwina. It's on the south of Poland. Marzena said that she regrets not having a special room for yoga in her library, but her colleagues and she care about their relationship. They organize weekend trips to nearby mountains and cooking together and walking around, and also go to the theater and cultural institution. And thanks to that, they are a good team and support each other. This integration influence their work in a good way. I see that wellness in libraries are very important, and there are many areas of this project, but I see that from Marzena that integration and relationship between librarians can also influence on our health and ourselves. So thank you.
Excellent examples from Poland. Thank you so much, Magdalena, for
thank you.
That's hard work compiling all of them from their country. I thought it was very interesting that you introduced the ergonomic factors for librarians and how libraries are trying to meet the needs of librarians, because we are all most of the time we are sitting, so that could be a bit detrimental for our bodies as well. Well, now we are moving to another country, and we welcome Katharina Isberg from Sweden.
Thank you. The resilient and sustainable workplace, that is the theme that I will talk about. And thanks for the invitation to this webinar. My name is Katarina Isberg, and I am the library director in Helsingborg, in the southern part of Sweden, close to Denmark, as you can see by the map. We have had a project, and we do have a project, which is called the Sustainable or Resilient Workplace. And we want to create a more sustainable and resilient organization, as well as get better work environment and a higher level of well-being for our staff at the library. And the library has 80 people in the staff, and we are working in 5 different departments. We also, of course, want to generate some new scientific knowledge for the library community, as this is a collaboration with a researcher, which is his name is Magnus Lindén, from the Institution of Psychology at the University of Lund. And we actually had a project a couple of years ago, which was called the Healthy Workplace. And now we wanted to move into a second step. And it was really a lot following up on the pandemic situation and the need that we saw during the pandemic. We started this last spring, so it's a year ago that we had our first workshop. And the first workshop was under the theme trust at the workplace. Because we see that a high level of trust among the employees is linked to a number of positive outcomes, including better work performance, better ability to handle challenging and stressful situations like the pandemic or the Ukrainian situation that we have right now, get higher job satisfaction, and also get greater commitment in the workplace to the work. And after the workshop, the researcher, Magnus, he made a research study of the situation at the workplace. And when researchers look into trust at the workplace, they look into 3 different dimensions: ability.
Katrina, excuse me, there is a small problem because we see only your first slide. So, so you need, yes.
Then we try to see if we can start this once again. Yes, I can see. You see that one. And I'm talking about this one.
Yeah, that's one.
So, thank you. Now you all see the trust at the workplace slide. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, we are on the 4th.
Yes, good. Thank you. Thank you for telling me. Trust at the workplace. Researchers, they look into these 3 dimensions that are all at this slide: ability, willingness, and integrity. And ability is to have the knowledge that you need for the work, the willingness, the want to help and care about each other among the colleagues, and the integrity, to have a fair and worthy and consistent organization. And we did look into this, and he found that we have a high level of innovation in our workplace. We have high engagement and positive feelings about the workplace, and also a high group connectivity, and managers and staff collaborate well. But we also made some findings what we needed to work on more, and one of those were feedback. So after this workshop, we had some seminars on feedback for the employees, and now we are also working on weekly feedback exercises. During the fall, in October and November, we had our second workshop. And at that time, we decided that uncertainty and dealing with uncertainty was what we needed to work on. And a feeling of uncertainty in the workplace usually is linked to employees feeling lower control over the work situation, poorer adjustment, a lower level of trust, higher stress and anxiety. And most of these factors have been present in various ways in most workplaces during the pandemic. And we wanted our employees to become experts, or at least become better in managing uncertainty and risks. And from a resilience perspective, it is important that we strive to be proactive rather than reactive when it comes to dealing with uncertainty. Try to look into the future a little bit. And this can be achieved by strengthening the employees' personal ability to handle uncertainty, and also by having flexible and healthy work structures. And of course, we also looked into what does it look like at our workplace. And the staff, they said that during the pandemic, they felt that they got continuous information and communication from the management, both on the situation as well as on the measurements that were taken. They felt that the employees were involved in the decision making. They also felt that there are clear routines, but there is also space for creativity. And you could see that we had quite a high level of innovations in the workplace. If you have too many clear routines, you won't get any innovation. And then also they felt that the measurements that were taken created a feeling of security. And moving into the employees as such, they felt that they got a more resilient view of themselves. They learned to be positive about change and have a confidence in their own ability as well as in the management ability. They gained an increased insight that they are capable of adapting to new circumstances, and greater focus on the importance of highlighting what is positive, not the negative issues, but the positive about colleagues. And the important work for democracy that the staff at the library performs, that is also something that you really make uncertainty go away. You feel that you're making a difference. And now we are moving into workshop 3 and 4, because this is a 2-year project. The third workshop will be on our identity, and the fourth one is on our strengths, our individual strengths. And that will be done during the rest of this year.
Katrina, excuse me again, because I see that Zoom makes a joke again, and we see only the 4th slide.
Okay, then we just skip the slides.
Yes, and if you are on the PowerPoint, maybe there is a, Swedish is so beautiful language, but maybe there is a possibility to choose presentation mode.
Yes, I have done that, but it's really, I think we just skip the slides and we move, continue. And I will share the slides afterwards so we can see them afterwards. It's something that is not really working as it should be. Because I think that the most important part for us now is to really work on this, the learnings that we get continuously in the daily business. Because together we will create the sustainable workplace, and that is something that we do together at the workplace. So I stop there, and I'm really sorry that the screen sharing didn't work. But as I said, I will share the slides afterwards so you can see them.
Thank you so much, Katharina. We have a question for you. The initiatives, the wellness initiatives, are they meant only for librarians or every library staff?
All the library staff. We are always working with everyone, and we really don't really care about if you are librarian, library assistant, or whatever role you have. Everyone is important in order to for us to perform our work.
Wonderful, yes. And that's what we meant with library workers, with today Wellness for Library Workers, to include not only librarians, but everybody that's working in the library. Thank you, Katharina. And yes, we will share, Katharina, slides, because I think they are important in the sense that they present another view, because this library is part of the city. So this is part of a city initiative that has included the library and continues. So we have different type of examples today. And now we are welcoming Dr. Sadi Jane Hoff from Singapore, and this is a video presentation.
Greetings and salutations. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at. Thank you for being part of this IFLA session. My name is Sadie Jane, and I am the president of the Library Association of Singapore, here to speak about, here to be one of the speakers to speak about a very pertinent topic, librarians and their mental health. Now, COVID-19, as everyone knows, hit all of us like a hurricane. Especially for team leads, for the managers, etc., all of us had to scramble to find ways not only to adapt, but also to adopt and change the way we do things. Now, as we all clamored to meet the needs of our many users, who was looking after the needs of our librarians' mental health? Now, what's interesting is that mental health has been a taboo topic for eons. However, it's only because of COVID-19, in fact, not at the start of COVID-19, but much later on, that mental health started to be less taboo, something that we could discuss, something that we could not feel like we're going to be judged should we bring it up. Let me ask you something. Well, okay, since I'm not physically there or virtually there, let me just ask you to think about this. What were you doing for your librarians, for your colleagues, prior to COVID-19? Not all the issues that they've been facing were that different from what's happening now. Of course, everything got escalated, and having to digitize everything quickly to be, IT savvy and stuff like that, that's another layer of stress. But honestly speaking, prior to COVID-19, how did you help your staff, your colleagues, deal with mental health? Yeah, something to think about, yes? Because what I've noticed is a lot of us just, feel like, for example, our library frontliners. It's part of their job, they're used to it. Or even like, it's not like they only deal with one person. By now they'll know how to, cope with whatever has been thrown at them. And unfortunately, that's not necessarily the case. Now, let's put it this way. If a user is highly strung, highly stressed out about their own personal issues, sadly, more often than not, they tend to take the frontliners as their punching bags. I do not condone this, but we all know this happens. And when that does happen, ask yourself this: do your staff or does your colleague know how to deal with the situation? Not just during the situation, with service excellence and all that stuff, but do they know how to deal with it post-event so that they are mentally and emotionally not broken after being verbally abused? Now, if it's physically abused, I mean, honey child, you better be doing something by, for your staff or your colleague early on. But verbal abuse somehow tends to be a little bit pushed aside to a certain extent. but the impact of words can be worse than a punch. Now, I would actually develop a very short checklist. And with this checklist, I would ask myself this. Doesn't have to be long even. It can be like, 3 to 5 questions or 3 to 5 things to think about. For example, if it's your colleague who was just, verbally abused, after that event has happened, how would you help your colleague? As a librarian receiving the abuse, how would you personally manage that situation? Note it down. As the overall in charge, whether you're a team lead or whether you're even the head librarian, how do you manage both the user and, more importantly, how do you manage your librarian's mental health after the event? Now, this is something that I think should be discussed and, then written in like 3 to 5 points as to serve as a reminder. And the reason why I suggest that we do this is because at that point in time, that when that abuse is hurled, you might be thrown into shock. And you may not know how to deal with it. At least you can refer to this little post-it with the 5 points there. And just one little trigger or even a safe word or a safe phrase that you can just tell your colleague and they'll know, okay, say Jane's just been verbally abused by a user and, she said she's given me a heads up that she needs, 15 minutes to just consolidate all the thoughts and her emotions and stuff in order to be less upset, or she needs to have a cup of tea to just calm down a little bit, and she won't be able to take on a new call or sit at the front desk for about 15 minutes just to, recover and everything like that. Things like this, if they are in place, it's not too much to ask, and if they're in place, it might really, really be something that can help people. Having motivational quotes and stuff like that is all well and good, but honestly, on a personal level, I don't think it really does very much. If you're not going to listen to your staff as they give you feedback and things like that, what's really the point? Now, for me personally, I feel that it is very, very important for all of us, especially if we are heads of department or head of the library or team lead even, or even as a colleague, to find ways to better approach mental health issues. We can talk about it, we can write about it. We need to make this less taboo. This is a very important topic and we need to make it less taboo, that's one. And two, we really, really need to not push it to a corner and ignore it. So great job, IFLA, on, promoting mental health amongst librarians and bringing this as a topic of discussion. It shouldn't be a one-off. It should be something that we can work with other people who deal with mental health issues. We can collaborate with them. We did something at the Library Association of Singapore with this group called Mental Act SG, and it was a huge success. In fact, there were a lot of people who were actually asking for a follow-up, whether a workshop or another session of the talk and so on and so forth. Most importantly, one thing that I noted is everyone who submitted questions, and there were tons of questions, tons of questions, not one person was brave enough to actually put their name down. So even asking a question, they had this sense that they will be stigmatized, especially if their bosses or team leads or colleagues were to find out who it was that submitted the question. So I found that interesting. I think I was the only brave one who put in my name, but yeah. We're dealing with a situation where we've got colleagues who are getting terminated, retrenched, because of budget cuts or libraries that are closing down and all that. And this causes a lot of stress as everyone's not just dealing with difficult users, and I'm not saying all of us have difficult users, but there will be that one pain or two pains around. But the fact that, we're seeing our colleagues leave the libraries or seeing or hearing about budget cuts and things like that, and we can't help but feel scared about our own rice bowls. What's going to happen? How am I going to feed myself and my family? These are all very big concerns. Now, I'm no mental health expert, but sometimes all you need to remember is that we are human beings with empathy. Well, I hope most of us are. And you do not need to be an expert in an area, but the minute you find that you are unable to help your colleague or your staff, as it's beyond, just listening to them, and they really do need help, please, I advise you to get them to seek help. Talk to a shrink or call one of those free helplines and stuff like that and get the help that they need. I really do hope that things get better for everyone. And there was a saying that I came across the other day that I really liked. And I hope that, it helps. If we speak kindly to plants and it helps them grow, imagine what speaking kindly and being kind to each other as human beings can do. And with that, should you wish to contact me, you can email me at president@las.org.sg. president@las.org.sg. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope I gave you some food for thought. Toodles!
And we thank Dr. Sherry Jane Ha from the Singapore, president of the Library Association in Singapore, with very interesting views as well on the work of library associations and also the libraries are doing in wellness. We are so pleased to have colleagues from different regions of the world today. And now I would like to welcome Samantha Shir, also from Singapore.
Okay, here's my mic. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is having a good start to your day or end of your day as it is for me. Okay, so thank you, Eva, for inviting me to this sharing. I'm quite, I was watching all the panelists and all your discussions. It's very enlightening. It was very interesting to see what everyone is doing around the world. So let's just talk about a small little microcosm in Singapore, NTU Library. Okay. Oh, before I start, I guess, yeah, I am Samantha. I am the acting lead for Service Innovation and Excellence in NTU Library. And I am also a committee member for the Staff Engagement Committee. I hope you can see my slides. Okay, so first I'll talk a bit about the Staff Engagement Committee. So we're trying to focus more on like navigating staff bonding during the pandemic. And so a little bit about NTU Library is that we have around 70 staff spread out across 7 library offices. And we have this thing called the Staff Engagement Committee, which is made up of 7 to 8 staff. The committee runs on a 2-year voluntary basis, and we organize events and look after the general welfare matters of the library. So past events before the pandemic would have typically included in-person crafts workshops, organizing of like games, sporting events, visits to cultural sites, buffet lunches, which was very popular. So the current committee that I am part of, we took office in 2020, right after the pandemic started. And we had to kind of scramble to kind of think of like, oh, how should we reorganize our events? How do we still have bonding events when we are all separated and we can't meet up? Right. So the goal of it, which was supported by our library management and university librarian, was to feel connected. Right. So we still have that bonding thing. So we are trying to feel connected with each other and to lift each other's spirits. Okay. Right. So we had lots of virtual activities and games. I'm sure a lot of people also mentioned this. In your earlier sharings, workshops and stuff. So we tried to focus more on things that were things that they would have even if there was no pandemic. So things like craft workshops, Okay, scavenger hunts. We had also virtual stepathons, some music recitals, and just sharings from people who we kind of set up as a way to get to know each other, our colleagues, when we were all in lockdown and everyone couldn't see each other for a very, very long time. Yep. The other thing, yeah. So one of the main things, well, one of the bigger things accomplished by the current committee was the creating of our secret staff lounge. We took an old storage space in the library and we repurposed it into a staff lounge. And we got our staff to participate in the creation of this staff lounge because it was theirs. And we thought that this was a way for them to also connect with each other and to connect with the library in creating this staff lounge. So we got them to tell us what they wanted to see in it, like a TV, comfortable space to talk to each other, some place to eat. We have board games. And also, notably, we have the wall. So we had them come in and paint a portion of the wall. And we provided stencils and paint for them. And a lot of them said that it was very therapeutic for them. So it was kind of like art therapy. They just come in, they don't think about anything. They just paint a little bit on the wall and they leave their mark there. And every time they go and visit it now, they remember it and they also admire the artwork from their other colleagues. Okay. The other thing I'm going to talk about today is Hygge. Hygge is a place, a space that we launched in NTU Library, which is for both our users and our librarians. It was launched in January last year, and it has a unique design in that it encourages self-expression, self-reflection, and self-care through the experience of calmness and tranquility. So Hygge is actually a Danish word for well-being, and refers to factors contributing to everyday happiness, such as coziness, absence of annoyance, and taking pleasure from the presence of soothing things. So to complement all this, as part of our manifesto, we have low lights in the room, we have bean bags, and we make sure that it's a no-shoe zone. So this is to try and get them out of their studying kind of mindset and or work. Yeah. We also managed to collaborate with the museum to host the inaugural exhibition in Hygge that if you are in Singapore, you can visit it until end of May this year. We collaborated with an environmental artist and alumnus of NTU. And so it is a multisensory art and science exhibition set in an urban construct, and she replicated the tranquility of the forest at night through spatial photographic experience with artificial soundscape and concocted scents. So if you walk around the space, you will hear the sounds of a forest at night, and you'll be able to smell a specially concocted scent. So that was our initiative. Yes, that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for this opportunity. I shall stop sharing now.
Thank you, Samantha. Today's program has been so wonderful with so many different examples. And now I will share examples from the USA and from the American Library Association. But I didn't want to lose the opportunity to say how impressed I am with all these different examples, including Samantha's from Singapore, on how the input and the participatory approach to include library workers is reflected from the world, allowing people to paint, and also from these times where we've been working from home for a long time. It's wonderful. I was trying to take screenshots myself. Now I will share my screen, and this will be our last section for today, to share examples on what we've been doing at ALA level. Let's see. Okay, good. And these examples are from resources and mechanisms to bring wellness into the lives and workplaces from ALA to its member and also librarians in the US and everywhere. And they, my examples today come mostly from the Committee on the Status of Women in Librarianship that I share. And they are about different views than we have presented today. And I will share them now because everything in our lives contributes to our wellness. And so librarians are human beings, and we need to try to address many topics that are also part of our society to help us ourselves. And so this is the page of the CASL, Committee on the Status of Women in Librarianship. And here is one of the topics about wellness. And this is anti-racism work. And it's an issue that affects us all in our profession and in all professions. And we want to build a profession and a world that we deserve. And so we must acknowledge the cultural and structural racism, I should say, which with our society operates before we can begin to, for instance, dismantle the structures of oppression. And I can't see the chat very well, but I'm going to open it just in case there is something for me. Okay. All right. So as a profession, we have made progress recognizing systems of oppression. However, we must address these fundamental issues in order to truly come together and move forward as a unified community. And with this goal, we presented national webinars to discuss how institutions can adopt anti-racism actions that mitigate the damage of the systems to limit Indigenous, Black, and people of color. And we know that this is a huge topic that I wanted to mention because everything can affect our well-being at work. And so working together, we can all engage more constructively in conversations about racism and actions to continue building equity, diversity, and inclusion for the profession, our society, and the world that we deserve. And this is one of the events that we presented. It is totally available for free on the CASL website. The next area is equal wages. And having that same problem, the screen is not moving. This is very interesting. So maybe I have to stop and share again. And let's see if this works best. So I'll just share it this way. And so the next area is equal wages. For instance, professional tennis player Venus Williams and professional soccer player Megan Rapinoe both have won Olympic medals in their respective sports and are world-renowned athletes and have contracts with different products and companies. But even the salary they earn from their sport is not on par with their male counterparts. And in our library profession, it happens that salaries are not equitable either. So in order to promote conversations between administrators in our field, we organized an event during the ALA annual conference to discuss salaries and working conditions in libraries. Okay, since we have experienced the pandemic and since librarians have predominantly female workforce, the impact of furloughs, layoffs, pay cuts, and slow job market inevitably is gendered because of the huge workforce that is female or identified female. And so the ALA APA salary survey provides statistics on salaries for library positions in the US, and the data is collected from public libraries serving populations under 10,000 to more than 500,000 people, and for academic libraries at community colleges, four-year colleges, and university libraries. All this information is included in the survey and can be useful for hiring managers, library directors, and human resources staff. It is also valuable for librarians seeking employment or considering relocating to pursue professional opportunities. And so due to the pandemic, the last data is from 2019, and I understand that the efforts to compile are currently underway. And this is the Better Salaries Toolkit, also available on this page, on the pay equity page. Support for caregivers of loved ones is another area. Specifically during the pandemic, we have seen how having to care for sick children, parents, and friends has also affected people's performance. Last February, we had a national event where the presenters were directors of academic and public libraries, along with a librarian specializing in people's well-being, where the presenters recommended to their fellow administrators to explore how employers can create emotionally healthy workplaces with policies and relevant procedures, how employers can offer flexible hours and job expectations, and how employers can help staff caring for children and or parents during this period of COVID-19. Also, how can administrators and staff support library workers, especially women, because they are the largest workforce, and our committee is to look into the status of women in librarianship. And these people are caring for parents and their children, loved ones, and pets during COVID-19. And this event is also the recording available free on our website. And here we have a slide on the Caregivers Toolkit available as well, and you can consult that. The last area I want to mention is empowerment of women. Despite the larger number of women working in libraries today, many of us, especially women of color, regularly experience instances where our contributions, opinions, and suggestions are undermined at work. Over time, this results in low morale, loss of individual confidence, and in extreme cases, a hostile work environment. The concept we have developed is to present webinars titled Bridging the Gap in Support of Women's Librarianship, where the goal is to better understand the factors that contribute to undermining and undervaluing women in the library's workplace, recommend actions, and identify strategies library workers can use to make the workplace an environment where our many contributions are valued. To this effect, the committee hosts a webinar, and then we were invited to present an event at the Black Caucus of the American Library Association National Conference and at the Reforma National Conference, and this is the slide from that conference. And Reforma is the National Library Association to promote library and information services to Latinos and the Spanish speaking. At this last event, we presented an expanded program, and the slide is on the screen. It included author talks, a panel on wellness strategies, and a panel of on women empowerment. And it was wonderful. The recordings are available for those who attended the conference, but recordings about bridging the gap in support of women in librarianship are available free on the COSL website. Today, I also want to highlight ALA resources to support wellness for library workers. For instance, the ALA Association of Professional Allies Wellness website for library workers was revamped with new content. And this website was originally created under the ALA president, Laureen Roy. And during my ALA presidency, we worked with a student of Dr. Roy to add supplemental information for all the areas to update the website. And and add another area related to financial wellness, in addition to emotional, environmental, intellectual, occupational, physical, spiritual, and social wellness. So we have 8 elements of wellness on that website. We presented some webinars. For instance, this is an example of one of them. And it's called Strategies for Wellness for Those Experiencing Microaggression plus Workplace Stress. And the recording of this one is available on the emotional wellness page of this website. Other times we presented courses. For instance, we did present one with Bobby Newman on wellness for library workers. And this was through a partnership with the National Network of Libraries of Medicine, and they were taught by Bobby. Also during the ALA conference. ALA has some recognition, awards, or citations related to the area of wellness. And the inaugural ALA Presidential Citation for Wellness in the workplace was established during my presidency. I'm very into wellness, as you can see, and is now housed by the ALA Sustainability Roundtable. And this is to recognize wellness efforts by libraries. We want to motivate libraries to do that. And the Richland Library of Columbia in South Carolina was the first one selected. And I want to read what they did because it covers different areas of wellness that perhaps we have spoken today in this webinar, and I tried to touch during my presentation. For instance, they were selected for creating and sustaining system-wide support for library staff through multiple wellness initiatives and efforts, and the Project Play, that's the name, Project Play, provided each library department with discretionary funds to support activities they choose to improve staff wellness, such as bowling, karaoke, social lunches, meditation, and coloring. And they included a goal in its strategic plan to be the most progressive and sought after employer in the country. They increased the salary of many workers that were underpaid, mostly paraprofessional staff, and that went up at least around 24% even the salary. So this was a huge action. They revised their policies for medical leave and paid time off, added a room for staff to exercise, and provided an option for staff if they wanted to share bicycles provided by the library to travel to meetings. And so that was an incredible work they did, but to bring wellness to library workers. So big applause. During ALA conferences, ALA staff members and I collaborated on a cooking demo. So it was a cooking program during the conference where I share nutritious recipes of vegetable juices, and for instance, shrimp and veggie stir fry on the cooking stage of the ALA annual conference exhibits floor. ALA also provides a room for yoga and meditation. In terms of publications, this is very important because we need to start sharing what we do to bring wellness to library workers in library associations, in your academic public school libraries, and those libraries that are also connected with the city. And so I wanted to share 2 examples. One, my ALA president's column on American libraries, and this is from 2019, on January 2019. And this was dedicated to encourage library workers to immerse themselves in wellness. And it featured examples of libraries providing wellness opportunities for the staff and resources for library workers. And I also wanted to share, there's another blog post on the CPDWL blog about library wellness with many more resources as well. I hope this information is useful to you and we start sharing what we're doing. And I hope you are encouraged to build on this, whatever you're already doing. And if you're not doing much, to feel encouraged to develop strategies and creating resources for your library staff. And now we're going to see if there are any questions for our speakers today. This is the time. We only have just a few minutes. We are a little bit over time, but I wanted to see if there are questions. If there are no questions, I don't see them there. I'm going to thank our speakers from different regions of the world, from Singapore, from Sweden, Germany, from Iowa here in the States, and Poland, coming here to share with us. If they can turn on their cameras for the last goodbye for today, to share these examples. We want to encourage everyone, to motivate now to go back to your teams and talk to your administrators as well, because wellness is very, very important, as we have lived during the last 2 years. So thank you to the speakers, thank you to the attendees. The webinar recording will be available soon and will be shared through the same communication channels that we where we distributed the announcement for this webinar. So and with that, we will see you hopefully again at another webinar on wellness. Thank you.